The crystal spires of New Kalata caught the morning light like captured starfire, their surfaces singing with harmonious vibrations that had echoed across the Kethany homeworld for over 3,000 cycles. Children with iridescent wings played in floating gardens, while their elders tended to bioluminescent orchards that fed entire districts. The Kethany had built their civilization on beauty, harmony, and the absolute belief that violence was a relic of primitive species. That belief died when the sky began to bleed. Elder Thysia watched from the High Council's observation deck as acidic droplets fell like burning tears from the heavens. Where they touched the crystal spires, the ancient structures dissolved into steaming puddles. The Vorth bioships hung in orbit like massive tumors against the stars, their living hulls pulsing with malevolent purpose as they rained destruction on the world below. Evacuation ships report they cannot break through the blockade, Council member Phylan announced, his usually calm voice cracking with desperation. The Vorth vessels are intercepting everything that leaves the atmosphere. Our people are trapped. Thysara's 6 arms clicked nervously as she processed the reports flooding in from across their 12-world confederation. Methra colony had gone silent 6 hours ago. The garden worlds of Petra and Velos were burning. 500 million Kethany were dead, and more died with each passing moment. What of our defense fleet? She asked, though she already knew the answer. Gone, Phylan whispered. Admiral Korvash attempted to engage the Vorth near the third moon. The bioships, they didn't just destroy our vessels. They consumed them, absorbed them into their own biomass. The Kethany had built their ships for exploration and trade, not war. Their energy shield were designed to deflect asteroids, not weaponized acid that ate through hull plating like water through paper. Their weapons were mining lasers repurposed for defense, useless against the Vorth's regenerating bioarmor. Another acidic bombardment struck the city's outer districts. Thysia could hear the crystal towers screaming as they died, their harmonic frequencies turning into death wails that echoed through the air. Millions of her people lived in those towers. There has to be something, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Some weapon, some ally we haven't contacted. Phylan's compound eyes dimmed with grief. Elder, we exhausted every option. The Galactic Council refuses to intervene, claiming the Vorth attacks on internal territorial dispute. Our trade partners have severed all communications. We are alone. Thysia closed her primary eyes and reached deep into her memory, recalling lessons from her youth when she studied the old archives. Stories dismissed as mythology by modern Kethany, tales of ancient protectors who once maintained balance in the galaxy before vanishing into legend. The gardeners, she breathed. Elder, the precursor stories. The gardeners who pruned the weeds of the galaxy and protected growing civilizations. Her secondary arms began working frantically at her personal data tablet. The old texts speak of beacon, hidden in the deep places of our world, a way to call them in times of great need. Phylan's mandibles clicked in disbelief. Elder, those are children's tales, myths to help younglings sleep. Are they? Thysia pulled up the ancient star charts, overlaying them with modern surveys. Look here, these deep cavern systems beneath Mount Thissa. Our geological teams marked them as unstable and sealed them off centuries ago. But according to these texts, they weren't natural formations. The building shuddered as another acid strike hit nearby. Through the transparent walls, they could see Kethany fleeing through the streets, their wings singed and bodies burned by the toxic rain. Even if the beacon exists, Phylan said desperately, the caverns are flooded with poisonous gases. No one has entered them in 400 cycles. Thysia stood, her decision crystallizing like one of her ancestors' sculptures. Then I will be the first. 20 minutes later, she descended into darkness older than her civilization. The ancient lift system still functioned, powered by energy sources a Kethany no longer understood. As she went deeper, the walls changed from carved stone to something else entirely, a material that seemed to absorb light and reflect it back in patterns that hurt to look at directly. The beacon chamber was vast, its ceiling lost in shadows that seemed to move independently of her light source. In the center stood a device that defied description, part machine, part crystal, part something that her mind refused to categorize. It hummed with potential energy that made her wings tingle. The control interface was covered in symbols that predated galactic standard, but somehow she understood their meaning. This was older than the Kethany, older than the Vorth, older than most species in the galaxy. The precursors had built this as a lifeline for civilizations facing extinction. With trembling primary hands, she activated the beacon. "Great gardeners," she whispered in the ceremonial tongue her grandmother had taught her, "we are dying. Our children burn in acid rain. Our cities crumble to dust. Please, help us." The beacon's energy tore through dimensional barriers like a knife through silk, seeking its intended target across the galaxy. But space and time had shifted since the precursor's era. Gravitational fields had changed. Star positions had drifted. The desperate plea hurtled past its ancient destination and kept traveling, crossing vast emptiness until it reached a small yellow star on the edge of a spiral arm. Admiral Jack Morrison stood on the bridge of HMS Defiant, watching the stars wheel past through the main viewport. Earth's first interstellar fleet had launched just 3 weeks ago, 12 ships carrying humanity's hopes and dreams into the unknown. Their mission was simple: explore, make contact if possible, and establish humanity as a member of the galactic community. It was supposed to be humanity's first peaceful step into a larger universe. "Admiral," Communications Officer Lisa Carter called from her station, her voice tight with confusion. "I'm picking up something strange. Long-range sensors are detecting a transmission, but it's not on any frequency we recognize." Morrison moved to her console, watching as alien symbols scrolled across the screen. The Universal Translator software, humanity's best attempt at preparing for first contact, struggled with the unfamiliar language patterns. "Can you clean it up?" "Working on it, so..." Carter's fingers danced across her controls. "So, this isn't just a transmission. It's a distress call. And based on these energy readings, it's coming from a star system approximately 4 to 7 light-years from our current position." The main screen flickered as the translation software finally found patterns it could work with. Fragmented words began to appear. Dying, worlds burning, extinction. Morrison felt ice form in his stomach. Humanity's first contact with alien life, and they were walking into a genocide. "So," Carter continued, her voice barely steady, "I'm detecting massive energy signatures at those coordinates. Whatever's happening out there, it's big, and it's violent." Morrison stayed at the star chart, weighing their options. Earth Command had given him broad discretionary powers, but this was far beyond anything they had planned for. His orders were to avoid conflict and focus on peaceful contact. But someone was asking for help. The warning klaxons echoed through HMS Defiant as Admiral Morrison's fleet prepared for the jump to hyperspace. 12 ships hung in formation around Earth's flagship, a mix of frigates, destroyers, and support vessels that represented humanity's first serious attempt at interstellar warfare capability. Captain Tom Bradley checked his weapons systems aboard the escort frigate HMS Resolute, running final diagnostics on the plasma cannons and missile tubes. His ship was smaller than the flagship, but packed enough firepower to glass a small moon. The crew called her the Bulldog because once she bit something, she never let go. "All stations report ready for jump," his tactical officer Lieutenant Mike Stevens reported. "Fusion reactors are running hot, but within normal parameters." Bradley nodded and opened a channel to the fleet. "This is Resolute. We're green across the board." Similar reports came in from the other ships. Commander and Foster's voice crackled over the comm from HMS Vengeance, the fleet's assault carrier. "Marines are strapped in and ready for whatever we find out there. My boys and girls are itching for their first real mission." Foster had handpicked the Marines from Earth's toughest units. 200 soldiers trained in zero-gravity combat, boarding actions, and hostile environment operations. They wore powered armor that made them look like mechanical demons, and their weapons could punch through 3 feet of steel plate. "Fleet-wide communication," Morrison announced from his command chair, his voice carrying to every ship. "We don't know what we're walking into, but someone asked for help. That's enough for me. When we drop out of hyperspace, assume hostile contact. Weapons free, but nobody fires unless I get a word or we're fired upon." The hyperspace generators hummed to life, reality bending around the human ships as they tore through the fabric of space-time. Inside the vessels, crews felt the familiar stomach-churning sensation of faster-than-light travel. Some newer crew members turned green and reached for their sick bags, while veterans just gritted their teeth and waited for it to pass. Dr. Kate Williams worked frantically in her lab aboard HMS Discovery, preparing first contact protocols and analyzing the alien transmission they had received. Her computers ran translation programs and tried to decode the energy patterns, but the technology gap was enormous. Whatever species had sent that message was far more advanced than humanity. Estimated arrival in 40 minutes. Came the announcement over the ship's intercom. All personnel to stations. 4 to 7 light-years away, on the dying world of New Kalata, Kethany's sensor operators detected the approaching dimensional disturbances. The readings were unlike anything in their databases. Crude, violent tears in space-time that screamed of primitive technology pushed beyond its limits. Sensor operator Kalara's compound eyes widened as she processed the data. Elder Thysa, I'm detecting 12 vessels approaching through hyperspace. They're actually coming. Joy flooded through the Kethany communication networks like wildfire. After cycles of believing they would die alone, the mythical gardeners had finally answered their call. Celebration pheromones filled the air of the command centers as desperate Kethany allowed themselves to hope for the first time since the attacks began. But as the approaching vessels drew closer, confusion began to replace celebration. These vessels... Kalara clicked her mandibles nervously, her voice carrying undertones of disbelief. Elder, they're made of metal. Crude fusion reactors barely containing their own reactions. How do they even achieve faster-than-light travel with such primitive technology? Elder Thysa moved to the sensor station, her 6 arms working controls to get a better look at their supposed saviors. The readings made no sense. These ships should have fallen apart the moment they attempted hyperspace travel. Their energy signatures were massive but completely unrefined, like watching someone try to perform surgery with a sledgehammer. Perhaps the gardeners chose to appear primitive to avoid frightening us, she suggested, though doubt crept into her voice. The old stories said they could take any form they desired. More sensor data flooded in. The approaching ships were armed to their metal teeth, bristling with weapon systems that seemed designed for one purpose: killing things as efficiently as possible. These weren't the elegant bioships of advanced species or the energy-based vessels of the ascended races. These were blunt instruments of war. 30 seconds to emergence, Kalara announced, her voice tight with growing unease. Space twisted, and the human fleet exploded back into normal reality in a flash of exotic radiation. 12 angular metal ships hung in the void like predatory sharks, their hulls scarred from atmospheric entry and marked with symbols in a blocky, aggressive script. The celebration pheromones in the Kethany command centers turned to terror in an instant. Through their biosensors, the Kethany could see inside the human vessels. The crews moving through the corridors weren't the enlightened beings they had expected. They were bipedal predators with forward-facing eyes designed for tracking prey. Dense muscle mass that spoke of high-gravity world origins. Bone structure that suggested they had evolved from pack hunters. Every instinct the Kethany possessed screamed at them to flee. These weren't saviors. They were apex predators from a death world, and they had just arrived in force. By the ancient light, Thysa whispered, her voice carrying harmonics of absolute terror. What have we summoned? On the bridge of HMS Defiant, Admiral Morrison studied the tactical displays showing dozens of massive organic shapes hanging in orbit around the planet. Some were clearly engaged in bombardment, raining destruction on the surface below. Others hung back in defensive formations. So, Lieutenant Carter reported, I'm detecting what appears to be a defensive fleet trying to break orbit. They are badly outnumbered and outgunned. Morrison watched as alien bioships the size of cities pursued smaller vessels that looked like crystalline butterflies. It was a slaughter, and they were watching it happen in real time. All ships, battle stations, Morrison ordered. It looks like we found our fight. Captain Bradley felt his ship come alive around him as weapons powered up and targeting systems locked onto the massive bioships. Resolute to flagship. We see them, Admiral. Permission to engage? Negative. Hold position and let them make the first move. We're here to help the little guys, but I want to know who's who before we start shooting. In her lab, Dr. Williams frantically worked on first contact protocols, knowing that the next few minutes would determine whether humanity's first encounter with alien life ended in friendship or genocide. The two fleets faced each other across the void, neither side understanding what they were truly looking at. The Kethany saw their worst nightmare, Deathworld predators armed for war. The humans saw what appeared to be a rescue mission in progress. What neither side realized was that this first contact would reshape the galaxy forever. The Kethany defense fleet hung motionless in the void, their bio-ships pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that Dr. Kate Williams quickly realized were chemical distress signals. From her laboratory aboard HMS Discovery, she watched the alien vessels through the main viewport while her instruments analyzed the electromagnetic spectrum flooding from their direction. "Admiral, these aren't just ships," she reported over the comm. "They're alive. And they're absolutely terrified." Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of HMS Defiant, watching the tactical display show 43 Kethany vessels arranged in what looked like a defensive formation. But their weapons weren't powered up, and several ships appeared to be trying to retreat further from the human fleet. Standard first contact protocol, Morrison ordered, "Lieutenant Carter, transmit mathematical sequences, followed by peaceful greeting patterns." Carter's fingers danced across a communications console. The transmission beamed out across space. Prime numbers, the Fibonacci sequence, and basic mathematical concept that any spacefaring civilization should recognize. It was humanity's way of saying we're intelligent and we come in peace. The response from the Kethany fleet was immediate and dramatic. The bio-ship's pulsing patterns shifted from yellow distress signals to deep red alarm indicators. Several vessels actually began backing away faster, their organic hulls rippling with what looked like panic. "Sir, they're not responding to our mathematical greeting," Carter reported, confusion clear in her voice. "If anything, they seem more afraid." Dr. Williams studied the spectrographic analysis flooding her screens. The alien ships were releasing complex chemical compounds into space, molecular messages that her equipment was just beginning to decode. "Admiral, I think I understand the problem. They are not afraid of our message. They are afraid of us." "What do you mean?" "These chemical releases are pheromones, sir. Fear pheromones, specifically. And based on what I'm seeing, they're reacting to our biological signatures." Williams pulled up a three-dimensional model on her main screen. "Our ships aren't shielded against biological scanners. They can see us, Admiral. They can see our crew." Morrison frowned. "And that's bad because to their biology, we look like nightmare fuel. Forward-facing eyes, dense bone structure, high muscle mass ratios. Everything about human physiology screams apex predator to a prey species." Williams highlighted different aspects of human anatomy on her display. "So, imagine if a fleet of ships crewed entirely by velociraptors showed up claiming they wanted to help. That's what we look like to them." The Admiral rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of first contact protocols crumbling around him. "So they think we're here to eat them. Or worse, based on these pheromone readings, they think we're allied with whoever's been attacking them." Williams' voice carried a note of urgency. "Admiral, we need to find a way to communicate before they decide we're hostile and do something desperate." On the Kethany flagship, Elder Thy Sire struggled to maintain composure as her sensor operators reported the impossible. The vessels that had answered their beacon weren't the mythical gardeners of legend. There was something far worse, a fleet of Deathworld predators armed with weapons that could crack moons. "Elder," her tactical advisor Corvain whispered, his 6 arms trembling. "Their weapon signatures are unlike anything in our databases. Those metal ships are carrying enough firepower to sterilize our remaining colonies." Thysaur watched the human vessels through the biosensors, studying the crew members visible in the corridors and command centers. They moved with the fluid grace of natural hunters, their bodies designed for violence in a way that made her species' peaceful evolution seem like a cosmic joke. "Perhaps they came to finish what the Vorth started," another advisor suggested. "Maybe this was all planned. The beacon, the distress call, bait to lure us into the open." Meanwhile, Dr. Williams worked frantically in her lab, using every piece of xenobiology training she possessed to crack the alien communication method. The chemical compounds the alien ships were releasing followed complex patterns that reminded her of insect communication on Earth, but infinitely more sophisticated. "Got it," she announced after 3 hours of desperate work. "Admiral, I can't translate the language directly, but I can synthesize basic chemical responses. It's crude, but it should get simple concept across." Her jury-rig translator sent a cloud of synthesized molecules into space. A chemical message that roughly translated to friend, not enemy, came to help. The response was immediate. The red alarm patterns on the Kethany ship shifted to confused yellow-green swirls. A complex chemical message came back that Williams' equipment struggled to decode. "They are asking how we receive their signal," Williams reported. "I'm sending back receive call for help as best I can." The chemical conversation continued in halting, basic concepts. When Williams managed to transmit, "We came because you asked," the response from Elder Isaiah carried overtones that the computer translated as profound disbelief. "You came because we asked." The concept seemed to short-circuit their understanding. Admiral Morrison took over the chemical translator, speaking slowly so Williams could convert his words into molecular form. "That's what people do. Someone's in trouble. You help." On the Kethany flagship, Elder Thysaur's advisors chittered in confusion. The concept was completely alien to their understanding of galactic politics. Species didn't help strangers without expecting something in return. Predator species especially didn't travel across the galaxy to rescue prey species unless it was part of some elaborate hunting strategy. "They claim they came to help us," Thysaur announced to her council, her voice carrying harmonics of bewilderment. "These Deathworld hunters say they received our beacon and came to offer aid." "It's a trap," Corvain insisted. "It has to be. No species acts this way." Before anyone could debate the matter further, space around them began to ripple with familiar distortions. The sickening purple energy that preceded Vorth arrivals washed across the star system like a tide of corruption. Dozens of bioships materialized from the dimensional void, massive living vessels that dwarfed both the human and Kethany fleets combined. Their hulls writhed with predatory purpose, and acid already dripped from their weapon ports. On HMS Defiant, alarms blared as sensors detected the new arrivals. Lieutenant Carter's voice cut through the noise with professional calm. "Admiral, multiple contact dropping out of hyperspace. Size classification, supermassive. Configuration, unknown but hostile." Morrison studied the tactical display as red icons flooded the screen. The new arrivals outnumbered his small fleet 5-1, and each enemy vessel was easily 10 times the size of his largest ship. The organic designs were unlike anything in human databases. Ships that looked grown rather than built, pulsing with malevolent life. All ships, battle stations, Morrison broadcast on open channels. His voice carried across both the human fleet and, through Dr. Williams' translator, to the terrified Kethany vessels. "Looks like we're about to find out why they called." Captain Bradley's voice crackled over the comm from HMS Resolute. "Admiral, those things are massive. We're going to be seriously outgunned." Commander Foster added her assessment from HMS Vengeance. "My Marines are ready, sir. If we're going down, we'll make it count." The Vorth fleet arranged itself in a hunting formation that spoke of millennia of practice. These were apex predators of space, and they had found their prey huddled together like frightened animals. In the chemical conversation still flowing between the human and Kethany fleets, Elder Thysaur transmitted a message that needed no translation. "Run. Save yourselves. This is not your fight." Admiral Morrison's response, converted into molecular form and broadcast to every Kethany ship, would become legend in the years that followed. "Like hell, we're running." Swarm Leader Gosh floated in the bio-neural fluid of his command vessel, his tentacles interfaced with a living ship's nervous system. Through 1,000 organic sensors, he observed a pathetic gathering of metal construct that dared to challenge the evolved. His bioship, the Devourer of Worlds, stretched nearly 15 kilometers from its acid-dripping maw to its reproductive chambers. Around him, 43 other Vol vessels formed a hunting constellation that had conquered hundreds of star systems. "Behold these primitive metal boxes," Gosh broadcasted to his swarm through biochemical transmissions. "They burn fossil fuels and split atoms like children playing with fire. These crude constructs dare challenge the evolved." His tactical symbiont, a parasitic creature fused to his brainstem, fed him analysis data. The human ships carried impressive firepower for their size, but they were hopelessly outmatched. Basic metal hulls, primitive electronics, and energy shields that belonged in a museum. Dissolve them, Gosh commanded with predatory satisfaction. Let the prey species witness what happens to those who resist the swarm. The first Vault bioship, massive as a floating city, extended its acid pods like blooming flowers of death. Each pod contained enough concentrated bioacid to eat through a mountain. They launched in lazy arcs toward the human formation, trailing streams of corrosive vapor that would dissolve anything they touched. Captain Tom Bradley watched the incoming projectiles on his tactical screen aboard HMS Resolute. His ship's computers calculated impact in 37 seconds, not enough time to dodge, and their shields wouldn't hold against that much concentrated acid. All hands, brace for impact, Bradley announced over the ship's intercom. Damage control teams to stations. The acid pod struck Resolute's hull with splashing sounds that echoed through the ship's corridors. Where they hit, the reinforced titanium steel plating began to dissolve like sugar in rain. Emergency bulkhead slammed shut as entire sections of the ship opened to space, but the acid kept eating deeper. Hull breach on decks 3 through 7, his tactical officer Lieutenant Mike Stevens reported. We're losing life support. Engineering reports main engines are failing. Bradley felt his ship dying around him, the bridge filled with toxic fumes as he acid ate through environmental systems. Emergency lighting cast everything in hellish red as the crew struggled to maintain basic functions. Most species would have ordered their crew to abandon ship. Most commanders would have tried to minimize losses and retreat. But Captain Bradley came from Earth, where giving up meant extinction. All power to engines, he shouted as his bridge filled with toxic fumes that burned his lungs. Navigation, plot ramming course for that big ugly son of a bitch that hit us. If we're going down, we're taking them with us. His crew didn't hesitate. Even as the ship came apart around them, they followed orders with a grim determination that mocked human military service. The fusion reactors, damaged but still functional, poured everything they had into the main engines. HMS Resolute, her hull dissolving and her crew dying, accelerated straight toward the Vault bioship like a missile guided by pure human stubbornness. The organic vessel, designed to hunt fleeing prey, had no protocol for dealing with suicidal attacks. The collision sent shockwaves through both fleets. Resolute's dying mass punched through the bioship's organic hull like a spear through flesh, her fusion reactors detonating deep inside the living vessel. The explosion tore the Vault ship in half, spilling biofluid and screaming crew members into the vacuum. On the Kethany flagship, Elder Thysar watched in stunned silence. Her species had never seen anything like it. A crew choosing death to wound the enemy. The concept violated every survival instinct her people possessed. They destroyed their own ship, her tactical advisor whispered. They killed themselves to hurt the enemy. The Vault fleet recoiled in confusion. Swarm leader Gosh felt actual fear for the first time in centuries. What species destroyed their own vessels as a tactic? What kind of madness drove them to choose mutual annihilation over retreat? Commander and Foster seized a moment of confusion. From her assault carrier HMS Vengeance, she launched boarding pods filled with human marines. The small craft, designed to punch through enemy hulls and deliver soldiers directly into hostile ships, streaked toward the reeling Vault vessels. All units, this is Foster, she broadcasted to her marines. These things breathe atmosphere and can't handle vacuum exposure. Use that advantage. Remember your training and show these alien bastards what Earth's finest can do. The boarding pods hit the Vault bioships like bullets, their drill tips punching through organic hulls. Inside the pods, Marines in full combat armor checked their weapons one final time. Plasma rifles, explosive charges, and enough ammunition to fight a small war. Foster led the assault on the Vault command vessel personally. Her team breached the ship's nerve center through a hull rupture, moving through organic corridors that pulsed with alien life. The Vault crew, evolved for liquid environments, couldn't function in the hard vacuum that poured through the breach. Boarding Party Alpha, we're inside their command center, Foster reported, her voice crackling through static as she and her team fought through corridors lined with living neural tissue. These things can't handle our weapons. The bio-armor dissolves under plasma, fire like it's made of jelly. Her marines moved through the ship with devastating efficiency. Human weapons, designed to kill humans, the most dangerous predators Earth had ever produced, proved horribly effective against aliens who had never faced such concentrated violence. Admiral Morrison coordinated the chaos from his flagship, watching as human tactics born from millennia of warfare on a hostile planet turned technological disadvantage into strategic superiority. His ships were smaller, cruder, and outnumbered, but they fought with ferocity that no other species could match. All ships, concentrate fire on their command vessels, Morrison ordered. They are organic, so hit them where it hurts. Target their nerve clusters and reproductive chambers. The battle became a masterclass in human military doctrine. Where other species fought with elegant precision and calculated risks, humans employed chaotic aggression and sacrifice tactics that no rational species would consider. Captain Dave Wilson's destroyer HMS Thunderbolt used ramming speed to disable 2 Vorth ships, sacrificing his vessel to create an opening for the fleet. Lieutenant Colonel Janet Hayes led her Marines in a boarding action that captured an entire bioship, turning its own weapons against the swarm. The Vorth, apex predators who had conquered half the galaxy through superior biology and technology, found themselves losing to a species that fought like cornered animals. Every human victory came at terrible cost, but they kept coming, kept fighting, kept dying to protect strangers they had never met. Swarm leader Gosh watched his perfectly organized fleet fall apart under human assault. These metal ship primitives fought like viruses, infecting his forces with their insane willingness to die for tactical advantage. As his own command ship took critical damage from a human boarding party, Gosh made a decision that would haunt Vorth military doctrine for generations. He ordered the retreat. What manner of madness breeds on their world? He broadcasted to the surviving human ships as his fleet fled into hyperspace, leaving behind the wreckage of what should have been an easy victory. The humans had won through pure, unadulterated insanity. The void around New Kalata looked like a starship graveyard. Twisted metal from human vessels drifted alongside chunks of organic matter from destroyed Vorth bioships. Emergency beacons blinked in the darkness, marking where escape pods and survivors waited for rescue among the wreckage. Kethany bioships moved through the debris field with delicate precision, their living hulls pulsing with soft blue light as they searched for survivors. The same species that had been terrified of humans just hours before now risked their own safety to save the crews who had died protecting them. Elder Thysia personally directed the rescue operation from her flagship, watching as her people brought human survivors aboard their vessels. The rescued humans looked like walking nightmares to Kethany biology, scarred, blooded predators who should have triggered every flight response her species possessed. Instead, she watched her medical staff tend to their wounds with the same care they would show their own people. Elder, her medical coordinator, reported, "The human survivors are responding well to treatment. Their biology is remarkably resilient. Some have injuries that would kill most species, yet they remain conscious and alert." Captain Bradley was among the survivors, pulled from the wreckage of HMS Resolute with burns covering half his body. When Kethany medics brought him aboard, he had refused treatment until they assured him his crew was being cared for. Even dying, he worried about his people first. Commander Foster survived the boarding action that had turned the tide of battle, though she had lost 30% of her Marines in the organic corridors of Vorth ships. She sat in the medical bay, still wearing her blood-stained combat armor, filing reports on the tactical effectiveness of human weapons against bioship construction. Admiral Morrison's flagship HMS Defiant had survived the battle, though barely. Acid scarring covered her hull like battle wounds, and emergency repairs held her together with little more than determination and spare parts. When the Kethany invited him aboard their flagship for formal first contact, Morrison wore his dress uniform, the one that still carried blast residue and the smell of smoke. The meeting took place in the Kethany flagship central garden, a vast space filled with floating plants and crystalline structures that sang in harmonious frequencies. Elder Thysia approached Morrison carefully, her 6 arms held in what he hoped was a peaceful gesture. Her translator, now much improved thanks to Dr. Williams' work, converted her pheromone speech into audible words. "We call for gardeners," she began, her voice carrying musical undertones that the translator couldn't quite capture. "Divine protectors from myth who were said to tend the galaxy like a garden, pruning away the weeds and protecting growing civilizations. Instead, we received Deathworlders who chose to die for strangers." Morrison, his uniform still stained from battle and his hands bandaged from emergency repairs, shook his head. "We're just people. Elder, where we come from, you help when someone asks for help. That's how you survive on a world that's constantly trying to kill you." Dr. Kate Williams stepped forward, her cultural analysis pad in hand. She had spent the hours after the battle studying everything they had learned about galactic civilization, and the picture that emerged was startling. "Admiral, I think I understand now," she said, her excitement barely contained despite the exhaustion in her voice. "Our planet, Earth, forced us to evolve cooperation and self-sacrifice as survival traits. We had to work together or die alone. These traits aren't common in the galaxy. Most species developed on worlds that were safer environments," Thaisaya mused, her translator struggling with the concept as if the words didn't have proper equivalents in her language. "You come from a world that tried to kill you, and it made you better." Morrison considered the question seriously. Around them, Kethany younglings played in bioluminescent pools while their parents tended gardens that had never known drought, disease, or natural disaster. These people had evolved in paradise, never needing to develop the harsh survival instincts that marked every human interaction. "It made us human," Morrison replied simply. "On Earth, everything wants to eat you, burn you, freeze you, or poison you. The weather can kill you. The plants can kill you. The animals definitely want to kill you. So we learned that the only way to survive was to help each other survive. When someone's in trouble, you help them, because next time it might be you who needs help." The concept seemed to physically pain the Kethany delegation. Their harmonious chirps and clicks carried undertones of distress as they tried to process the idea of a world so hostile that cooperation became a biological necessity. News of the battle spread through Kethany communication networks faster than light-speed travel. Within days, every species in the Confederation had heard the story of the metal ship primitives who answered a distress call from strangers and fought impossible odds without hesitation. The story grew with each telling. Trade ships carried it to distant systems. Diplomatic channels buzzed with reports of Deathworlders from Sol 3 who had somehow defeated the Vorth swarm using tactics no civilized species would consider. Within weeks, other species began requesting formal contact with this new player on the galactic stage. The hegemony of rational thought wanted to study human military doctrine. The Crystal Singers offered trade agreements for human music, fascinated by compositions that contained such complex emotional harmonies. Even the enigmatic machine collective sent probes to scan the human fleet, trying to understand how organic beings could display such mechanical precision in combat. 3 months later, Admiral Morrison stood on the observation deck of humanity's first embassy on Kethany Prime. The building rose from the crystal gardens like a fusion of human engineering and Kethany bioarchitecture, metal and crystal growing together in patterns that shouldn't have worked but somehow did. Below, construction crews worked on the memorial that would commemorate the Battle of Ketha. Humans and Kethany labored side by side, their different biologies requiring different tools and techniques, but their shared purpose bridging the gap between species. Human engineers directed the placement of metal foundation stones, while Kethany bioshapers grew crystal structures that would sing the names of the dead for centuries. The inscription, painstakingly translated into both human languages and Kethany pheromone script, read simply, "They came when called." Dr. Williams joined Morrison at the observation window, her research pad showing the latest reports from Earth. The United Nations was rapidly expanding the fleet, and volunteer applications had increased by 3,000% after news of the battle reached home. "The Galactic Council has formally requested a meeting," she reported. "Apparently, our victory over the Vorth has scared some people. Species that never had to fight for survival don't understand how we could be so effective at warfare." Morrison nodded, watching as Kethany younglings played with human children in the gardens below. The kids had figured out interspecies friendship long before the adults managed basic communication. "They'll learn," he said. "The galaxy's a dangerous place. They need people who know how to fight the things that go bump in the dark." Deep beneath the embassy, the ancient precursor beacon still hummed with power in its hidden chamber. Elder Thaisaya visited it regularly now, no longer as a desperate leader seeking mythical saviors, but as a historian documenting the truth. The beacon hadn't malfunctioned when it sent humanity their distress call. It had worked exactly as designed, reaching across space and time to find what the galaxy truly needed. Not the mythical gardeners of legend, who had supposedly maintained peace through wisdom and enlightenment. It had found something better. It had found a species that understood the most important truth in the universe. Sometimes, helping strangers is the only thing that separates civilization from chaos. The humans had come when called, and the galaxy would never be the same.